If loyalty needs a reward, is it actually loyalty? In this episode, I unpack the loyalty illusion, as I've called it, what you can do about more fickle customers, and the role of trust in securing true loyalty. I'm Clare Bailey, the Retail Champion, and this is Retail Reckoning. This episode is the third of a three-part mini-series entitled Loyalty Illusion. Across this series, I believe we've built a pretty clear picture. In episode 1, it was about challenging the idea that loyalty programs actually create true loyalty. Episode 2 was about how customer behaviour, particularly Gen Z, has shifted. It's more fluid, less attached, and more influenced by what's in front of them than what they've always chosen before. And also layered across that how things like technology, algorithms and AI and even social media has shaped decisions in the ways that quite a lot of businesses are still well behind with and have a lot of catching up to do. So that's now leaving us with this episode, the bigger and slightly more uncomfortable question. Does someone shop with you because they're going to get some points, they've got an app, they've been nudged by special offers, or because with their loyalty card they get a better price? And does that mean they're loyal? Or does that mean they just respond to incentives? Because that's not the same thing. And that's where this term I've coined, the loyalty illusion, comes in. In fact, I don't think I've ever lived in a period of time where there have been more loyalty programs. And yet at the same time, I can say from my own behaviour, I'm probably less truly loyal. Because if brands start presenting me with better offers and better deals and so on, I feel drawn to the value argument or the reward argument, and that's a behaviour that we're seeing across the board. And the thing is, if you've got more loyalty programs and less true loyalty, isn't that a bit of a contradiction? And I think that contradiction is really at the heart of modern retail, because what we've been building as retailers over the last decade and more is really not the emotional connection. It's more tools and technologies to drive behaviour. Customers might stay because it's easy, it's rewarded, it's familiar, it's cheaper. But if you took all those things away, remove all the offers, remove prompts, push notifications, remove the system entirely, what have you got left? Because honestly, the real loyalty lives away from the influence of tools and technology. It's something much more emotional. And I believe that for a lot of businesses, the answer is going to be uncomfortable, because what they thought was loyalty was probably just really effective deployment of technology solutions. It was just mechanics. So if we're rewarding people, that's great, and that creates action. But trust is underpinning loyalty. And I guess this is something of a tension. We know that reward creates action, but trust is about commitment. And the two are sort of polar opposites, because if you think about it, rewards can be copied. Discounts can be matched or bettered. Offers can be beaten. And certainly in mass market retail, there's always a brand willing to go lower, faster, louder, to steal your customers, to gain market share, to hopefully increase profit through an average basket by having some of those loss leaders and shouting about them across all channels and being the race to the bottom. Now, that's great if you've got deep pockets, but it doesn't work for boutique, and it doesn't work for smaller businesses who can't compete with the buying power of others. So then we look to trust. Well, that's something that's built over time. And that's through things that actually can really matter to the customer. I mean, if it's a tin of baked beans, I'm not convinced that that matters at all. That will probably be the lowest possible price. You might be brand loyal because you prefer the flavour. But if one supermarket is selling your favourite brand for 2 pence less than another, maybe they'd be the winner. But when it's something more meaningful, clothing, home, furniture, technology, trust is really important, and that comes through things like consistency. So consistency of service experience, consistency of stock, consistency of pricing, through clarity. Who are you? What do you stand for? Who are you there to serve? What is your general position in the market? Are you value and economy based? Are you top end and luxury based? And so on. And then the other thing is the positioning sets a promise with the customer. And that promise leads to them having inherent expectations about what their service experience will be like. So the other thing I believe is really important to trust is delivering what you say you will. Because if the positioning sets an expectation, then they will expect a certain level of delivery, either consciously or subconsciously. And you have to consistently and clearly deliver what you say you will. And once you've got trust in place, it's much harder to lose it. Although you can, if you start messing about with silly pricing and so on. And that was the previous mini-series, actually. That's the difference between a customer who shops with you and a customer who chooses you. So a customer who shops with you may well have just been rewarded, or you might have the best possible price or this week, but somebody else will next week. A customer who chooses you doesn't look to anybody else. They'll even come to you just because they know that they get great service, great experience. You might even, especially in the boutique side of things, you might even know them by name. You can treat them more like a friend than just a faceless shopper. And that, again, is where the independents have the edge over the corporates. But then, thinking about that trust and what else, have to consider what actually drives the real loyalty. If incentives are not necessarily enough, what does work? And that's a really tricky question. I know it can't be more data because there's more than enough of that going around. It definitely isn't more complexity that just overwhelms customers and overwhelms staff, and it just adds cost. So therefore, it's got to be those few clear things. I've mentioned clarity. What I mean by that is, do customers understand who you are, what you stand for, why should they choose you, your ethics, your values, your whole position in the market, and are you there for them and why are you there for them? Consistency, touched on that above as well. Do you deliver the same standards every time? So I often say that there's a rotten apple that can spoil a cart, especially with franchise businesses. I'll use the example of McDonald's. You can go to a really good quality franchise-run McDonald's and get great service, great product quality, and you think, this is a nice one. But you can go to a really bad one as well. And that might leave you thinking all McDonald's are bad. So the rotten apple spoils the cart, as it were. And it's absolutely important that across multiples, the same standards are applied every time, consistently. But for independents, that's much easier because typically there's a few staff and it's very easy to get them behind what the brand stands for and what the service standards are. That leads to the experience as well. So is it frictionless and easy? Is it enjoyable? Should it be enjoyable? Was that what you promised your customers in the first place? Maybe you promised them a no frills, straightforward, not particularly excitable experience, but it's easy and frictionless. And enjoyable comes in where it's something that people want to engage with and it'll help them shop with you. So that leads to the final point, which we touched on above as well. Do customers believe they're getting value? This is about trust. And do they believe that you're consistent and clear in the value proposition? And do they feel that you're honest with them and transparent? And that in all of this, they're getting, well, a fair deal, I guess. Certainly in the previous mini-series, I touched on things like the risk of using dynamic pricing, because I think everybody expects it in the travel industry, but in retail, it could erode trust because customer A could come in the morning and buy something for, say, £10. And if customer B goes in the afternoon and the same product's now £9 and they know each other, imagine how customer A feels thinking, well, hang on a minute, why have they got it cheaper than me? It's the same thing on the same day. So dynamic pricing could erode trust. And this is why it's really important to get everything right. The clarity, consistency, experience that leads to the trust. Because customers at some point make a decision. Do I want to shop here? As in, am I compelled to? Do I actually want to do this? Or am I just being nudged to because I've been sent offers and rewards and discounts and deals? And that's the distinction between the loyalty and the reward-driven behaviours. So if there's just one takeout from this 3-part series, it is loyalty has not disappeared, but it probably has been diluted. I believe that the retailers that are going to win going forward will understand the difference between driving behaviours and earning trust. Now, you can drive behaviours initially to get customer acquisition, but then have the clarity, consistency, experience that leads to earning trust. So you can switch from, the behaviour driven by algorithms and systems and mechanics to the behaviour driven by emotional connection and trust. However, driving behaviour is short-term unless you then convert from behavioural-driven activity to trust-based activity. But trust builds long-term loyalty and a business that lasts, because customer acquisition can be an investment in reward or anything else. But once they are a customer, you keep them. And they do say, don't they, that it costs more to get a new customer than to keep an existing customer. And the more you earn in terms of customer numbers, the greater the benefit to the profitability, because it means that more people will be shopping more often, choosing you, and ideally also spending more. So to wrap up the series, if you listen to this episode on its own, I really would encourage you to go back and listen to the prior two. And it's because these are not 3 separate conversations. It's one sort of connected mini-series, as I said, that describes a shift in how retail needs to be working now to engage loyalty. If you want to apply this to your own business, there's a free download called the Loyalty Illusion Mini Guide. It pulls all of this into a simple document that you could take advantage of straight away. As I say, it's free and it's available via retailchampion.co.uk, retail-playbooks. You can also sign up to the Retail Reckoning newsletter, because I will share updates as episodes land, along with any free resources linked to certain topics. And that's at retailreckoningpodcast.co.uk/newsletter. And if you're at the point where you're thinking, this all makes sense, but what do I need to do about it next? Well, that's part of the reason why we've recently built and launched our suite of comprehensive retail playbooks. They go a lot deeper into things like pricing, range, commercial decision making, and so on, with tools and techniques that you can actually implement. So the playbook has webinars, worksheets, hints and tips, and so on. And that is also on the same page, the same URL as the Loyalty Illusion Guide. Finally, if the series has made you think a bit differently about your business, then I'm glad to say it's done its job. Because I think the biggest risk in retail right now is not change. It's assuming things will still work the way they used to. And that's not how it is. Anyway, I'm Clare Bailey, the Retail Champion. And thank you for listening. This has been Retail Reckoning.
Yeah, retail reckoning. No space for dusty shells.